Alberto Mendiola was standing off by himself, bored and anxious. He was in a bar on the east side of El Paso just before midnight, the end of an aimless day he'd spent fooling around with a girl he'd known since high school. Sachi Bakuya was her name. She called him Horse, a nickname from happier days, when he played drums in an El Paso rock band, back before he joined the Army and left for Kentucky and then Afghanistan, and wound up standing in a guard tower, his boots soaked in the blood of his friend Brandon King. A sniper had shot King in the head, and Alberto volunteered to take his place in the tower, where he spent the next few hours standing on the blood-soaked floorboards, keeping a watchful eye for the Taliban in the pomegranate orchards beyond the outpost walls. Now it was a Friday in March 2014, 3 years since he'd returned from the war, and his life was in shambles. He couldn't or wouldn't hold down a job, and he'd been collecting disability from the Department of Veterans Affairs for post-traumatic stress disorder for about a year. He was living alone in a barely furnished apartment, estranged from his wife Nicole, who still lived with their 3 children and his stepson in the house they'd rented together. That Friday night, Alberto and Sachi had ended up at a place called House of Rock. He didn't feel like socializing, though, and stood off by himself, drinking a Dos Equis, while Sachi shot pool with her friends. Alberto eventually ducked out the door and headed to his maroon Ford Focus. He texted Sachi, asking her to leave with him, but he got no response. He started his car and drove to Nicole's house on War Cloud Avenue. "I just missed my family," he would later tell me. "I wanted to be with my wife and kids." Alberto had grown up in El Paso, in a trailer on the east side with his parents and 3 siblings. He'd met Nicole through friends in 2007 when he was only 19. From the start, Alberto's family had concerns about the relationship. Nicole already had a 4-year-old son, and she was 5 years older than Alberto. They argued almost as hard as they partied, but the two were inseparable, and in short order, Nicole was pregnant. Their eldest son was born in July 2008. Alberto's family had never had much money, and the pressures of supporting a growing family drove Alberto into an Army recruiter's office in October 2008. In December, Alberto and Nicole married while he was home on leave from basic training. 3 months later, Nicole became pregnant with their daughter. Already there were signs of trouble. While Nicole was pregnant, Alberto was accused of physically abusing her on at least 2 occasions, according to court records. Their daughter was born at Fort Campbell, Kentucky in December 2009, just months before Alberto shipped out to Afghanistan. While he was deployed, Alberto spent much of his free time either talking to or trying to get through to Nicole and the kids on his outpost's spotty internet connection. When he returned from the war in 2011, he had trouble readjusting. He was drinking more, and he and Nicole fought often. By December, Alberto had been discharged from the Army, a year before his contract was up, for excessive drinking and a spate of domestic violence incidents, all of which amounted to a pattern of misconduct sufficient to send him packing, according to his discharge paperwork. Alberto and his family left Fort Campbell and returned to El Paso, and it soon became clear that war had changed him. Growing up, he'd always been active. "He never wanted to be sitting still," said his father, Ernesto Sr. But now he seemed dazed and lethargic, lying on the sofa at his father's house on Tigris Drive. That just wasn't like him at all, his older sister Patty told me. Normally, he would always be asking you how you're doing and a million other questions. Alberto was irritable too, prone to snap at the slightest aggravation. Ernesto Sr. remembers the shock he felt when he saw Alberto yell at one of his children. "It was over nothing. I'd never seen him do anything like that before," he said. "I told him, 'Son, don't talk to him like that.' It really worried me." The change in Alberto's behavior worried everyone, but they didn't know how to deal with it. "No one from the Army told us about PTSD or anything like that," Ernesto Sr. said. "I wish we had known more so that we could have helped him better. We really just didn't know what was happening."